It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment.
Unbelievable!
This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
And welcome in to You Better You Bet for a Wednesday. Like that annoying car insurance commercial would say, hump day? I don't know. I thought it was funny for a while, and then it got played out. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today on You Better You Bet. It is a great day to be alive and have a million things to talk about. Coaching searches, hirings. Oh, by the way, have you heard there's a couple of games being played on Sunday as well? A million things going on, and we are so happy that you are here for it today. As mentioned, in for Nick Kostos, but you can still watch the show on YouTube, youtube.com/The Kostos. I'll attempt to do as good a job as Nick does staying involved in the chat. Would love to hear what you all have to say about what's going on in the world of sports today on Westwood One Sports and live in the Westwood One Sports app for the next 3 hours. Also on Sirius XM channel 375. Yeah, people are coming, people are going. And again, there's a couple of pretty big games to be played this Sunday that feel like, with all the other news around the league, including some former coworkers taking shots at each other, pew, pew, may be falling by the wayside, these two games. Backup quarterbacks involved, third time around in the other game. A lot to get to. Pat Boyle of BetMGM tonight here on Westwood One Sports will join us later in the show because we got to talk about expectations in the Big Apple. Jared Stillman from Nashville to talk about expectations in Tennessee, because both of those places in the last 48 hours have officially, well, at least officially in New York, announced their new head coaches. There are still openings elsewhere. There are still guys looking for jobs. One guy who said thanks, but no thanks to one job so he could go take a step back in another location. Point being, there's a lot going on. And as I like to do when I fill in here on You Better You Bet, or anytime I'm on Westwood One Sports, I like to get the biggest stories right off the top. Time for the high five. Hit it, Kenny.
5.
At times, as a team, we've been very, very inconsistent this season, as an offense, certainly. So all things that we'll look at long-term here once the season's over and have a chance to look at all of it. But certainly there's frustrations there.
Kevin Stefanski at the end of the 2021 season. Remember who his quarterback was back then? Pepperidge Farms remembers. It was Baker Mayfield. Since then, Baker Mayfield was cast aside by Cleveland, thrown out on a kerosene-soaked raft with a lit flame like he was some sort of aging Viking warrior receiving his funeral pyre. But he jumped off, swam to shore, fought through the thickets and the weeds of Carolina, and a stop in L.A. to find himself in Tampa. Now, this year certainly had plenty of bad Baker moments, no doubt, especially late in the season, that may have outweighed the early season big-time Baker moments. Let's not forget, 6 or 7 weeks into the season, we were talking about Mayfield as a possible MVP candidate. Meanwhile, up in the mistake by the lake, they wandered through quarterback wilderness for another year with the husk of Joe Flacco before trading him down the road to Cincinnati, a wildly overmatched Dylan Gabriel, a not yet ready for primetime Shedeur Sanders, and the ghost of Deshaun Watson still lurking around corners. That's, I'll be honest, very scary for multiple reasons, not the least of which is the quarterbacking on the field. Anyway, I don't know exactly what went on in the interpersonal relationship between Mayfield and Stefanski, but it came to a bit of a head last night because after D. Orlando Ledbetter of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who covers the Falcons, tweeted that Kevin Stefanski had a dumpster fire at quarterback in Cleveland, failing Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson in a chain reaction to 11 other starters. In preparing Falcons fans for Stefanski's arrival in Atlanta, which is now official, Baker quote tweeted that and said, failed is quite the reach, pal. Oh, he dropped pal, the condescending pal. You're not my pal, buddy. You're not my buddy, pal. Still waiting on a text/call, Mayfield posted from him, referencing Stefanski, after I got shipped off like a piece of garbage. Can't wait to see you twice a year, coach. Oh, I don't know how it all ended, and I don't know how it's going to go between the Falcons and the Bucs, but I do know Baker Mayfield is the most classic example in today's NFL of a guy who you absolutely hate if he's on the other team, and you absolutely, unabashedly love if he's on your team. He's the closest thing, Baker Mayfield, the NFL has to the NHL agitator, right? When you watch Baker Mayfield play, when you absorb his persona on and off the field, tell me you don't see Brad Marchand at his peak with the Boston Bruins. Go look him up if you're not a hockey fan. A guy whose nickname is the Rat. A guy whose ability to get under your skin is simply a part of his DNA. That's Baker Mayfield. So much so that he doesn't even have to think about how he's going to piss you off. It just happens naturally. He looks at you and you go, God, I hate that guy. Unless he's on your team. And then you love him. And then you sprinkle in the occasional extra motivation on top, and it's like the powdered sugar on the donut that showed up at the office on Friday morning, and you know you shouldn't have it. You know it's bad for you, but you're going to crush that donut anyway. You know the instant gratification is what it's all about. Screw the extra 20 minutes on the Peloton you're going to have to do because of it, because damned if it doesn't taste good. It's the same thing with Mayfield. You may end up regretting it in the long run, but it sure as hell is fun to enjoy at the time, isn't it? Next.
4.
When on Sundays we're not producing wins in the type of football that, I know that I'm hired here to produce, I'm pretty aware that no one wants to hear my sweet jokes.
Sweet jokes. Mike McDaniel earlier this year in Miami, where they struggled, despite a bit of a late season resurgence. What kind of a dumpster fire, though, do the Cleveland Browns have to be that someone is willing to withdraw their name from consideration for your head coaching vacancy to go be a coordinator somewhere else? Yeah, that's exactly what Mike McDaniel did yesterday, though. He told the Browns, yeah, it's not me, it's you. Is that how that's supposed to work? Yeah. So he could go work for Jim Harbaugh in L.A. Don't get me wrong. I think it'll actually work out nicely for McDaniel and the Chargers. A guy who's brought a run game to life in multiple locations, not just as the head coach with the Dolphins, but as a successful run game coordinator before that. And he's going to be working with a head coach who loves to grind it out, who could use a quarterback, by the way, who isn't in bits and pieces by the end of the year. But back to the Browns. Where do you go now if you're Cleveland? I mean, you're already a joke, right? Now you're a joke that can't find anybody that wants to be your head coach. At least not the kind of head coach that you need. You need someone to come in and take control, build culture, and finally get things pointed in the right direction, despite your meddlesome owner. In a perfect world, the Browns would throw several suitcases of money at Sean McDermott. Oh, why in the world would he want to go there either? To be set up to fail? They are an abject disaster, the Cleveland Browns, hurtling down a track with no direction, only to once again fly off the edge of a cliff like the end of Back to the Future 3. And you know why you don't get that reference immediately? Because nobody really remembers Back to the Future 3. You know why? Because it was the worst movie of the trilogy. Much the same way the Browns have become the worst possible version of an enterprise that otherwise should just be printing money hand over fist in a world with the salary cap competing more often than once every couple of decades. Yes, it's a roundabout analogy, but the Cleveland Browns have become to the NFL what the ending to Back to the Future 3 was, if it had a flaming train filled with trash at the end of the movie. You know where I'm going with that. Next.
3. And Bassett deals. And Bonds hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here. 7:56. Bonds stands alone. He is on top of the all-time home run list.
Why am I playing a Barry Bonds clip of him breaking Hank Aaron's all-time home run record in the middle of January? Because at some point, we're going to have to change the name from the Baseball Hall of Fame to the Baseball Museum full of guys who didn't piss off writers who are still alive. Seriously, it's a joke at this point. The best hitter in the history of the game, whether his power was aided by HGH or other performance enhancers or not, is still the greatest hitter in the history of the game. All apologies to Tony Gwynn. And it's a joke that Barry Bonds is still not in whatever they want to call that building in Cooperstown. Another year has come and gone, and you may have noticed yesterday another year of underwhelming names has been elected for enshrinement into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And another year has come and gone, and Barry Lamar Bonds is not on that list. We could go over the numbers again, but is it really necessary? No. Again, he's the greatest hitter in the history of the game. Debate the allegedly chemically enhanced power numbers if you want. But Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he ever rubbed any cream or clear on himself or took any HGH or did God knows what else, allegedly. And steroids, allegedly, or whatever else he may or may not have used, didn't affect the man's hand-eye coordination, didn't affect his ability to read pitchers. Ask Greg Maddux about that. Didn't affect his ability to work at-bat. Didn't affect his ability to make some of the sweetest contact the game has ever seen. Yet, here are all these old curmudgeons who believe in their own self-importance as the gatekeepers of a museum that should tell visitors about the greatest players in the history of the game. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, so it's not worth belaboring the point too much here this morning, especially in the middle of January with so much going on in the world of the NFL. But indulge me for a moment. If Barry Bonds had simply not been a jerk to a bunch of writers and some teammates and staff members when he was playing the game, he'd already be in the Hall. They would have overlooked his ethics the same way they have countless others. They'll tell you it's about the cheating, allegedly. And sure, baseball has, like any other sport, a code of ethics and rules. But will we hear the same arguments about Tom Brady someday deflating footballs or winning his first championship based off of surreptitiously filmed practices? No, because Tom Brady was nice to the media 99.9% of the time. And now he's a member of it. Barry Bonds, to be clear, was a jerk, a massive a-hole to many of the people he crossed paths with when he played baseball. But that should not keep him out of the Hall of Fame. He should be right there, right inside the front door, right over the threshold as you walk in, with a plaque under his name that states he is the greatest hitter of all time, because that's what he was. Not only owns the home run record, which again, you can debate all you want, he was a lifetime 298 hitter while doing that. Go look at the on-base percentage some of those seasons when he drew more walks than he had at-bats. Yet a bunch of old writers who love to hold grudges and who have a million character faults of their own will claim that it's based on his character. Oh, but congratulations to career 250 hitter Andrew Jones and Carlos Beltran, who combined in 8,000 more plate appearances than Barry to hit just 100 more homers than he did. They'll fit in very nicely in the Hall of Very Good. Next.
2.
It's disingenuous if you're just counting up the number of turnovers and saying, well, that's a terrible performance by Allen, because 2 of them were not really his fault.
Oh, Sam. Sam Munson of Pro Football Focus on their Check the Mic show with Steve Palazzolo last night. Sam's a really smart guy. So, Steve, I like PFF for a lot of what they do. But can we stop with this idiotic drivel about poor St. Josh? The man played one of the worst games of his career Saturday night in Denver, cost his team their best shot to go on a Super Bowl run since he entered the league, and got his coach fired in the process. Sure, there are plenty of reasons for the Bills to have finally been done with McDermott. But for him to be the scapegoat after Josh Allen fumbled and bumbled away a game that could have been theirs, and then to watch Allen be deified for it, is the single most absurd thing I've heard following the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. If that had been Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or almost any other quarterback in the league, we'd be burying them. And rightly so. Asking if that team really did, in fact, have the right guy at the most important position on the roster. But instead, since Josh Allen seems like a cool dude with a good sense of humor, and he cried a few tears in the post-game press conference, he's being treated like he's Mother Teresa. Don't get this twisted. Josh Allen cost the Bills their best shot at a Super Bowl in his 8-year career. And guess what? He's not getting any younger. And now the Bills have to go through the transition of a new head coach on top of it all. Maybe Allen gets lucky, and it'll be his existing OC, Joe Brady, taking over. Maybe he'll get Brian Daboll back, and we could just put Allen's face on the side of the Bills' helmets instead of the Buffalo logo. But for the fans of Buffalo, who are so starved for a Super Bowl, they'd dive over Niagara Falls if they knew it could guarantee at least the trip back, much less an actual victory, will get exactly what Josh Allen has become. Incredibly great 85% of the time. Maybe I'll give him 90. Incredibly stupid 10 to 15% of the time. And that's what Bills fans need to be focused on in the aftermath of another early playoff exit, rather than who the coach is going to be next year, or who the wide receivers are going to be, or who's going to play in the secondary, or who's going to rush the quarterback. Bills fans, you need to worry if you really do have the right guy. Because if Josh Allen ever plays in a playoff game again the way he played Saturday night, the answer will be laid out right there before you. No, he might not be the guy. At least not the guy to get you that Lombardi you've been dying for 6 decades for in Western New York. Now, Josh Allen can certainly bounce back from this. But until he does, and until he proves that he can get rid of that 10 to 15% stupidity that still resides in his quarterbacking DNA and not play the kind of games with the football that he did this past Saturday in Denver, let's stop pretending like he's a martyr. You don't need to light candles for him at church this week. Josh Allen isn't the martyr to the Buffalo Bills season. He was the murderer. Next.
1.
They say New York's a different kind of place, and I would say it's probably true, man. This is pretty amazing right here. This is incredible. And to see those players back there, see those guys smiling and ready to go to work, that gets me fired up.
John Harbaugh's introduction in New York yesterday as the football Giants head coach. I wonder if he's excited for their yearly dinner with the San Francisco Giants. Back after this. Of the 14 head coaches the New York Giants have had in the Super Bowl era, only 2 have captured the ultimate prize. And the 11 who didn't at least appear in a Super Bowl before the end of their 4th season, if they made it that far, didn't stick around for a 5th. Yeah. If you're a New York Giants fan, that has to be the goal with John Harbaugh. With Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, and Cam Scatterbo, the goal has to be at least a Super Bowl appearance in the next 4 years. That seems, at first blush, like a wild leap to make from where they are right now. But it shouldn't be. If you're willing to hand over the keys to the entire organization to one man, as the Giants have done, you better be willing to make his success or lack thereof a referendum. A referendum not just on the job that man can do, but a referendum on what the standard is for your organization these days. For years, even in the lean times, that's always been the stated goal in the Giants organization. So why should it be any different now? I know 4 years is an eternity in the modern day NFL, so that may not be soon enough for many Giants fans. They may want to run Harbaugh out of town if he's not at least in the playoffs in year 1. But from Harbaugh's perspective, and from the Giants' point of view, this high-profile marriage can only be about one thing, and one thing only, a Super Bowl. Otherwise, why do you hire a 60-something-year-old coach who hasn't been to the big game in over a decade? Otherwise, why put the future of young talents like Dart, Neighbors, and Scatterbo in the hands of a guy who hasn't been able to get Lamar Jackson to the ultimate goal? It's because you're slightly desperate. Desperate to get back to what you think your rightful standing in the NFL should be. And Harbaugh, by both name and experience, figures that's his standard too. Over the next few years, we're going to find out if these two were actually right for each other or not. The question is, will Giants fans have the patience to find out? And does Harbaugh actually know how to put it all together still 16 years after his lone Super Bowl victory? We'll talk to Pat Boyle, who's in New York, of BetMGM tonight about that. 1 hour from now. We are up and running on a Wednesday on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack with you also inside the Westwood One Sports app. In for Nick Kostos today. You can also listen on Sirius XM channel 375. And of course, watch the show on YouTube, youtube.com/@thekostos. And you can be a part of the conversation as well. We welcome it, in fact. 310-840-4910 or jump in that YouTube chat as well. Coming up, could Mike McCarthy get another go-round with Aaron Rodgers? We'll take the latest spin on the coaching carousel, and I'll tell you why the Steelers may be a bunch of cowards. Next.
Have you planned or thought about when you get to see Coach Mike, like what it's going to be like?
I'm going to give him a big old hug. I can tell you that much.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Aaron Rodgers a while back on the Pat McAfee show talking about his old head coach, Mike McCarthy. I'll drop a Yinzer accent for you and talk about McCarthy and why I think the Steelers could end up being giant cowards in their head coaching search in just a minute. But welcome back into You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. We have got you covered. We will talk more about the Giants' official announcement of John Harbaugh as their new head coach with Pat Boyle of BetMGM tonight coming up in a little less than an hour, right around 10:20 Eastern. And with everything going on there, I don't want to say it flew under the radar a bit, but it was late night news the other night on Monday. And again, didn't really necessarily trickle under the radar, but they got a new head coach in Tennessee too, Jared Stillman of Stillman and Company down in Nashville, going to join us at 11 Eastern, 10 Central to talk about the expectations in Tennessee with big bad Bob Saleh on the job now. But I do have to thank those of you jumping into the YouTube chat. You can watch the show as well, youtube.com/@thekostos. A shout out to Excalibur One Force, who's excited their Stars won last night for the first time after a 3-game losing streak. There's your hockey for today. Sorry, lots of football going on. What are we doing? To Sports Wage One for shouting out the Yins. A little. I don't overdo the Yinzer. I don't think I do anyway. By all means, if I ever fall into the Pittsburgh accent, tell me. It will never be, if I do fall into it for a few moments, as strong as Mike McCarthy's. No way, no how. I remember Aaron Rodgers also mentioning on one of his appearances on the McAfee show once that he sometimes had to run McCarthy's play calls through a translator in his head in order to get through that thick Yinzer accent. They love Pittsburghers in Pittsburgh, and particularly the Pittsburgh Steelers love Pittsburghers, so much so that Mike McCarthy is in their building today interviewing for their head coaching position in person, which flies directly in the face of the template the Steelers have used for their coaching hires over the years, all 2 of them in the last 35 years or whatever it's been. Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin were both young, relatively inexperienced defensive coordinators when they were hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers to become their next head coach. And it's why immediately everyone has latched onto the idea of Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula as a leading candidate for the Steelers gig. Yeah, Anthony Weaver's been mentioned by some as well. Jesse Minter got a first interview, but hasn't come back around for a second one. Brian Flores is getting an in-person interview this week as well, which is sort of an odd mix of the two because he's got head coaching experience that went extremely poorly in Miami and does have experience with the team already. Worked with them in 2022 as a special defensive assistant. So there's a lot of different directions these Pittsburgh Steelers could go for their next head coach. Again, they make these hires about once every couple of decades. Not all that often in Pittsburgh. They go looking for a new head coach. Their owner, Art Rooney II, said something interesting during a press conference last week in which he laid out the idea that he never wants to purposefully take a step back. Right? Never wants, always wants to compete at the highest level. And look, you want to hear an owner tell you that he believes the standard for a given franchise, for your favorite team, is, to steal from the late Al Davis, just win, baby. That's what we want to do. We want to compete for championships around here. But sometimes I think your better angels have to whisper in your ear and say, hey, maybe you do need a step back here. And maybe it doesn't even end up being a step back. The Pittsburgh Steelers could hire Chris Shula or pass game coordinator at the Rams, the young Nate Scheelhaus, who's only 35, but is another McVay disciple. They could hire one of those guys. They could build out a staff around them and spend the next few years finding out if they found their next great head coach at a young age. And it may go awfully. May go very poorly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe Shula or Shieldhouse or whatever other young assistant they hire isn't quite ready, or something else jumps up and gets in the way. And they go 6-11, 6-11, 7-10, and they're out after 3 years. But that is exactly what Art Rooney II, the Steelers owner, fears more than anything else. He fears 6-11 like you fear running out of gas on a remote highway somewhere. He fears it like you wake up in a cold sweat thinking about, am I saving enough for my kid's college fund? Have I checked the oil lately? Oh my God, I have to do that yard work this week. All those stupid fears that you have. That Art Rooney fears all of them rolled up into one big ball of wax as 6-11. 6-11 is what scares him more than anything else in this world. And so, the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially if the Rams win this weekend, and we'll get into the conference championship matchups at the top of the hour. If the Rams win this weekend and the Pittsburgh Steelers feel like they might not be able to name their new head coach until after the Super Bowl, they may do the very cowardly thing of pivoting to Mike McCarthy and or Brian Flores. And I say that because there was an interesting theory thrown out by my friend Mark Cabali, who covers the Steelers, coincidentally enough, for the aforementioned Pat McAfee show. He had a theory yesterday that maybe McCarthy comes in as your head coach, takes the offense, and Flores, who might not be in total agreement over a contract extension in Minnesota, comes in as your assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. I think that's a bit of a reach. But the point remains there are two very clear lanes for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now in what they do with their head coaching position. They could go with the unknown, the inexperienced assistant coach, Shula, and or Shieldhouse, who honestly could come over with Shula as his offensive coordinator if they decide to go that direction. Roll the dice a little bit. Here, blow on these. And may come up snake eyes. May not work out. But at least you took a shot. And the worst that happens is you go 6-11 for a year or two, get yourself a couple of decent draft picks, and reset on the fly. Worst thing you do is maybe push Aaron Rodgers and Cam Hayward and maybe even TJ Watt out the side door and reboot. Get younger on both sides of the ball and in the coaching staff. But again, the Pittsburgh Steelers, whose last head coach had one of those tried and true Tomlinisms, one of his great press conference cliches that he would drop, do not live in their fears. Well, I'm here to tell you, Art Rooney II, Pittsburgh Steelers owner, lives in his fears about as much as anyone. And as I mentioned, he fears 6-11 more than anything else. And so, when he told the media last week that he does not want to take a step back, that he wants to continue to compete, what he was really saying was, I think we should try to continue to go 9-8 or 10-7. And as long as you get in the playoffs, well, shucks, you got a chance. This is an organization, though, that has told everybody, not just in Pittsburgh, but all over the sports landscape, that they contend for championships every year, knowing full well that for the last half decade or so, that hasn't been true. And if all they really want, if all Art Rooney II really wants for the Steelers is to just keep plugging away at 9 or 10 wins every year, maybe snag a division championship every once in a while like they did this year, but always be out in the first weekend of the playoffs unless things break their way, then they'll go with McCarthy or Flores. And if it's McCarthy, there may be the added incentive that Art Rooney II and Steelers management would get to placate all those veterans who shouldn't have the same pull they once had. Those veterans who haven't done anything in the playoffs for the last 8 or 9 years. You guys know how many playoff games TJ Watt has won in his career? I'll read the list off for you. That's it. That's the list. None. TJ Watt has never won a playoff game in his career in Pittsburgh. A singularly great talent at his peak, not helping them win playoff games. But they haven't had a quarterback. Fair. And that's another thing Art Rooney II fears. We don't have a quarterback. We should keep Aaron around another year. The guys really seem to like him. Everybody had fun. Until January, and it wasn't so much fun anymore. And so don't discount the thought that Steelers management may make the very cowardly move to simply kick the can down the road again, hire Mike McCarthy, and put McCarthy and Rodgers back together for at least one more year. You laugh. But trust me, Steelers fans aren't laughing at that thought. They hate the idea. They want this team to finally have the stones, the cojones, to make a bold move again, which they haven't made in years. So will they be the cowardly lion? And will they continue to chase 9 and 10 wins every year and be that high floor, low ceiling team that they've been for the last decade and a half, really? Or will they roll the dice, go after a Shula or a Shieldhouse, even if it means they have to sit around and wait for them until after the Super Bowl? You're still allowed to interview them next week, by the way, even if they win on Sunday. In person, no less. You've got next week for that. Find out if you've got your guy. What's going to happen in the next 2 weeks anyway? And then hammer down, step on the gas. Notice I said down, not down, so I didn't drop the yinzer there. Hammer down, step on the gas with a new, fresh voice in charge. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers should be doing, but keep an eye out for the cowardly pivot move. I like Mike McCarthy. Good guy. Very nice. But not the answer for the Pittsburgh Steelers going forward. Coming up, we know what the answer isn't in Cleveland. And Mike McDaniel, well, he made a choice that tells us a lot about him, a lot about the team he chose, and just as much about the teams or one very specific team he didn't choose. That's next right here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
The thing I am adding to the list this week, Alex, something that's kind of bothered me a lot. And it's a phrase that we use in sports way too often. It's the phrase 110%. Go out there and give it 110%. Go out there and give it your all. You know, you hear it all the time. Give it 110%. First of all, guys, that's mathematically impossible. Unless you're my car's gas gauge that one night in college, like, you're not giving it 110%. The people who say 110% are like the same people that say gazillion, or like the people that say 100 and go out and give it 110%. They're the people in the corporate world that like use words like synergy, right? The people that use the phrase go out and give it 110% probably subscribe to all of David Goggins' podcasts. I just think it is time we lay to rest the give it 110%. All right. Okay. Now, look, let's say hypothetically you could actually give it 110%. We work in sports talk radio. We live on hypotheticals, right? Hypothetically, if 110% is attainable, why stop at 110%? Why not give 150%? Why not give 368%? Why not give 971%? Why are we stopping at 110? Who came up with that number? Just give it 100%. Go all out. You cannot give 110%. And if you can, why aren't you giving more?
Herbert is sacked. It's the 6th sack of the day. Milton Williams wraps him up and slams him down at the 43-yard line.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
I was talking to Marty on the call on Westwood One of the half dozen times Justin Herbert got dropped by the Patriots a week and a half ago in the wild card game up in Foxborough, and he's got a new guy who will be talking to him in his headset this year. We'll get into Mike McDaniel's decision to take the OC job with the Chargers in just a second here on You Better You Bet. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on Westwood One Sports and inside the Westwood One Sports app, also on SiriusXM channel 375. You want to be a part of the conversation, whether it's a coaching vacancy, one that has been filled already, or you want to talk conference championship games. Obviously, still a couple big games coming this Sunday. 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910. And if you're somebody who, I don't know, insomniac, tennis lover, you're up late, you're up early, it's that time of year. Maybe it's just so damn cold where you live, you want to get a glimpse of sunshine and a reminder of what summer may look like when it gets here again. The Australian Open is going on, and BetMGM players, you can get an Australian Open odds boost token right now to use it Add it to your bet slip and activate the token inside your BetMGM app. If you win your wager that was made with that token, you'll receive extra winnings in unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app today if you're going to bet the Australian Open. That's the way to do it with that odds boost token inside your BetMGM app. Please play responsibly. Pat Boyle going to join us in about 35 minutes or so from BetMGM tonight here on Westwood One Sports to talk about the expectations in New York for John Harbaugh now that it's official with him being named the Giants head coach. And what are they feeling in Nashville this morning with Robert Saleh officially being named Titans head coach? Jared Stillman will join us from Nashville at 11 Eastern. So in about 75 minutes or so here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Don't forget you can watch as well always on YouTube, youtube.com/@thekostos. Mike McDaniel made a very simple decision. He said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to succeed in Cleveland. Why would I go become the head coach in Cleveland with a crazy owner who's better at running truck stops than forcing his organization to draft quarterbacks? He's not very good at the truck stop thing, I don't think. I know he's made a lot of money, but and here nor there. I don't want to go to Cleveland, said Mike McDaniel. I'll go someplace where I can rebuild my career as an offensive guru, as a play caller. And so he's going out to L.A. to become the Chargers offensive coordinator. He chose Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. And I think it's going to work out really well for him there. Look, if there's one thing Jim Harbaugh wants to do, it's grind it out from time to time. Even though he's got a talented quarterback, I think we've all seen at this point that Justin Herbert alone is not enough to drag the Chargers kicking and screaming any deeper than a wild card round. Doesn't help that he just got absolutely beat to bits and pieces this year behind a patchwork offensive line after all those early injuries. You get a healthy offensive line. You get a run game thanks to Mike McDaniel. Look what he did with the Dolphins, and A-Chain specifically. And you insulate Herbert from having to drop back 40 or 45 times every weekend. And immediately things open up, I think, for the Chargers on offense. Now, will Herbert still be there and still have to make the throws? Yes. But again, McDaniel is choosing to work with a quarterback who's going to be much better than the one he had in Miami. You get to go from Tua to Herbert. I mean, we're not talking about going from, Joe Flacco to Joe Burrow here, but it's still a pretty big leap. And Mike McDaniel has decided this is where I go to rebuild my career. And he'll probably be back in the head coaching interview cycle in a year or two if things go well with the Chargers. My suggestion would be to Mike McDaniel, maybe that's not you. Maybe that ain't you, dude. Maybe you're not a head coach. It's not an insult. It's not a knock. It may just be reality staring you back in the mirror. You're a little quirky. You're a little different. You walk into an NFL locker room or meeting room, and you're trying to connect with a bunch of dudes who, let's be honest, 80 to 85% of them are meatheads. I mean that in the most affectionate way possible. A lot of meatheads are still great guys, but you're walking into a room with a bunch of meatheads, and your pants are pulled up around the ankles, and you kind of talk with this stoner vibe sometimes, and I don't think it connects. I don't think it does. As an offensive coordinator, you don't have to deal with the whole room. You don't have to manage the entire roster. All you got to do is walk into a dark room for a few hours, crunch some film, figure out a game plan for that week's opponent, and then go lay out the plan before your head coach, before your quarterback, and get them ready to execute that plan. And McDaniel can still do that. I think the thing that got in Mike McDaniel's way the last few years was trying to do all that other stuff. And they still had success running the ball in Miami. The nuts and bolts of McDaniel's system will work wherever he goes, I think. But the leadership part of it, being the CEO, I don't think it jives with Mike McDaniel's personality. That's not to say that you have to be some sort of Tony Robbins-esque motivational speaker like Mike Tomlin. You don't have to be a guy like Dan Campbell, who once played the game at the highest level and will bite kneecaps off. You don't have to follow in either one of those lanes. I just think while diversity of personalities in NFL head coaching circles can be a good thing, I don't know how McDaniel's personality fits in there. Look, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe he'll get a job as a head coach again in another couple of years, like I said, and it'll all come together for him. He'll learn something from Harbaugh, maybe, about leadership. I don't know. But you thought he would have learned those things from Shanahan. Maybe he's just a great offensive mind. Maybe that's what's right for Mike McDaniel. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that at all if you're Mike McDaniel. Go be the best damn offensive coordinator you can be. Take Justin Herbert beyond the wild card round. Again, if you get a healthy offensive line, healthy running backs, you're going to have a chance to do something if you manage that offense correctly and don't put so much on Justin Herbert's shoulders. And that's why I think it can work in L.A. for McDaniel. I mean, could there be two more diametrically opposed personalities than Jim Harbaugh and Mike McDaniel? I would love to be a fly on the wall in that meeting room, by the way. Where would you rather be than right here, right now? Out back catching a smoke? I mean, right here, coach. Right here. It's going to be something to watch them work together. But I think if Harbaugh's smart and just cuts McDaniel loose with Herbert, lets him manage the offense, it may be one of the best hires, if not the single best assistant coaching hire in this cycle. And for McDaniel, you don't have to go to Cleveland. You don't have to wrestle with Jimmy Haslam and Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. And you don't want to do that. This is the right move for Mike McDaniel. It's the right move for the Chargers. And again, maybe that's the lane, Mike. Stay in that lane and ride there for a while. Because I think you could be really good at it. You've shown before that you can be really good at it. Coming up, we're down to the Final Four in the NFL. Yeah, despite all the coaching carousel news, there's still a few games left to be played, in particular the AFC and NFC championships this Sunday on Westwood One. Some early thoughts on those two big games next here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
The thing I am adding to the list this week, Alex, something that's kind of bothered me a lot. And it's a phrase that we use in sports way too often. It's the phrase 110%. Go out there and give it 110%. Go out there and give it your all. You know, you hear it all the time. Give it 110%. First of all, guys, that's mathematically impossible. Unless you're my car's gas gauge that one night in college, like, you're not giving it 110%. The people who say 110% are like the same people that say gazillion, you know, or like the people that say 100 and go out and give it 110%. They're the people in the corporate world that like use words like synergy, right? The people that use the phrase go out and give it 110% probably subscribe to all of David Goggins' podcasts. I just think it is time we lay to rest the give it 110%. All right. Okay. Now, look, let's say hypothetically you could actually give it 110%. We work in sports talk radio. We live on hypotheticals, right? Hypothetically, if 110% is attainable, why stop at 110%? Why not give 150%? Why not give 368%? Why not give 971%? Why are we stopping at 110? Who came up with that number? Just give it 100%. Go all out. You cannot give 110%. And if you can, why aren't you giving more?
It's time to laugh, to win, and to live the thrill of the action.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. What the hell's going on out here?
No idea what's going on, but I am excited.
Every pick, every play, every game-changing moment. Unbelievable! This is You Better You Bet, brought to you by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Conference Championship Week is here, people, and we got games to talk about. A couple of key players, one in each game that I want to focus on here when we talk AFC and NFC Championship games in just a moment on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. You can always watch the show on YouTube, youtube.com/@thekostos. You know where to find us wherever you're going. Right there on Westwood One Sports and inside your Westwood One Sports app. Also on Sirius XM channel 375. You want to be a part of the conversation, you can jump in that YouTube chat or just pick up the phone and give us a call. Thoughts on conference championship games, thoughts on the head coaching vacancies, still open around the NFL or the hirings that have been made. We'll discuss a couple of those hirings over the course of the next hour or so here on You Better You Bet. 1 hour from now, Jared Stillman of Stillman & Company in Nashville will join us to talk about Robert Saleh. Big Bad Bob Saleh's coming to Nashville. Music City, USA. What are the expectations there? And a defensive-focused head coach with a young quarterback to develop. What's the next move for the rest of that staff down there with the Titans? And coming up in 20 minutes, what is the expectation? What is the standard? What is the baseline for success expected by Giants fans in New York now that John Harbaugh is officially official as their next head coach? His introductory press conference taking place yesterday. But we got to talk about the games. There are games, people. There are still 2 massive football games left to be played. And everybody wants to talk about who's going to be this coach. There's mock drafts coming out. That coach, this opening. I get it. It's all great and worth talking about. But what about the games, people? And let's start with the early game. 3 Eastern, 1 Mountain, in Denver, Patriots, Broncos. Now, look. The main storyline coming into this one, and it's going to be the storyline all week, whether you like it or not, is Jarrett Stidham taking over as quarterback after 1 snap, I believe, earlier this year, and it was a kneel down. Jarrett Stidham taking over with Bo Nix done for what remains of this season for the Broncos. And the initial reaction to that was, oh my God, what are the Broncos going to do? But I think Sean Payton has a strong enough track record of preparing not just his starting quarterbacks, but his backup quarterbacks, that his game plan isn't going to be predicated on Jarrett Stidham making a ton of plays. It's going to be based on Jarrett Stidham just running the offense and doing what's asked of him. And look, it's not a knock against Bo Nix to acknowledge that Nix wasn't the reason the Broncos were winning games more often than not. It's about the defense. And it's about not turning the ball over and giving it to your opposition on a short field. It's about causing those turnovers yourself. It's about getting after the opposing quarterback. Everything that's worked well for Denver this year can still work well in this game on Sunday afternoon at Mile High. Why? 5 points still feels like a lot at BetMGM. Patriots favored by 5. And it's a weird number. It's sort of between the key numbers of 4, 4.5, and 6, 7. Oh my God, I just made a 6-7 reference. I swear to God, I didn't mean to do that. Let's just ball up the last 15 seconds of the show and throw it out. Erase that from the tape. Anyway, it's a weird number at 5. Kind of between a few key numbers. So play it how you want. My eye on this would be towards the under. I think it's a race to 20. And the total has inched up from the open at 40.5 to 42. That's a look at it from the perspective of how you want to bet on it. The main storyline, as I said, is going to be Jarrett Stidham. I think it should be the other quarterback. I know you've got a backup starting in a conference championship game. Again, I think Sean Payton will have Jarrett Stidham ready and won't ask him to do any more or less than Bo Nix has done this year. Look what he did a few years back. I can't remember what year it was exactly, but Teddy Bridgewater was the backup to Drew Brees in New Orleans when Peyton was still there and was out for 6 weeks or something. I think Teddy Bridgewater went like 5-0 because Peyton knows how to get his backups ready. And I think he'll have Jarrett Stidham ready, like I said, to make the right plays at the right time and not try to do too much. But what about Drake May? I know I've questioned May a good bit this year. He was on fire late in the season. Undoubtedly will end up right behind Matt Stafford in MVP voting. And you can't argue that it was a breakout year for Drake May. But protecting the football, especially in the playoffs, has not been his forte. Hasn't been excellent at it, has he? 6 fumbles in 2 playoff games for Drake May. He's lost 3 of those. 14 fumbles When you total up all 19 games the Broncos have played this year, he's lost 6 of them. Given what we've seen from the Patriots defense in forcing mistakes from C.J. Stroud, in getting after Justin Herbert, is there any reason to believe that both of these quarterbacks aren't going to be running for their lives on Sunday, including Drake May? Now, I get it. He's good at running for his life. But this is the team that has piled up more sacks by a wide margin than anyone else in the league this year in the Broncos. They do a great job of disguising coverages and blitzes. Where's the pressure coming from? I don't know until the ball's snapped, and then it's too late. Because I got 2.4 seconds to get rid of that thing before somebody's on top of me if I'm Drake May. Again, it's a race to 20. It's going to be which quarterback makes fewer mistakes. And I think because of the fact that Peyton will insulate Stidham from making those mistakes, May is actually in a more precarious position going into this game. He can't put the ball on the ground multiple times. He can't make a mistake trying to fit a ball into tight coverage. The Broncos defense will feast on that, like they have all year. And the decisions are going to have to be quicker than they've been at any point this season from May, which means you're going to have to piece together drives. You're going to have to dink and dunk your way down the field, even if you're not making mistakes. So, again, I would not be the least bit surprised to see the Broncos handle business at home against the Patriots, but I think it'll come down less to Jarrett Stidham and more to the opposing quarterback in Drake May on Sunday afternoon in the first of those 2 conference championship games. As for the second of the 2, I know the Jarrett Stidham storyline is very interesting. I think this game, much more interesting in Seattle. Well, it's the 3rd time they've played this year. And we're coming off of the matchup 5 weeks ago between these two, where Sam Darnold looked like seeing ghosts New York Jets Sam Darnold for the first 3 quarters of the game, and then had a miraculous 4th quarter and overtime. If Darnold plays like that again for 3 quarters, they're not going to get out alive, the Seahawks. I don't think they've got that wild 4th quarter overtime comeback in them again. It's why I think the most important name in this game is Kenneth Walker III. Zach Charbonnet done. Walker hasn't carried it more than 19 times in a single game this year. He's had his own injury concerns over his career. That's why they didn't pick up his contract coming into this season. The option on his contract, I should say. But he's capable of being that guy who gets the ball, should be fresh, right? Again, no games with more than 19 carries this year. He shared the load with Charbonnet. He should be fresh, Kenneth Walker III. Fresh enough anyway that they could be as all in on him and the run game as they need to be against the Rams. Take some of the load off of Sam Darnold's shoulders. Take some of it off of JSN's shoulders. Don't make it all about those two having to connect 8-9 times. I didn't screw up and do the 6-7 thing that time. Thank God. But the less you can make the game about Sam Darnold, the better. Again, it's not a knock on Darnold, and it's not a knock on any quarterback in general. I've mentioned this before, and I will continue to repeat it until people actually buy into the concept. It's not a knock on a quarterback to say you're going to ask him to manage a game. That's your number one job as a quarterback. If you're in position as a quarterback to have to pull your team's rear end out of the fire to go win a game, that's not advantageous. It's great if you're a quarterback who can do it, sure. But you don't want that to be the plan. You want the plan to be, hey, listen, we trust you, we believe in you, and we're not going to ask you to go out and win the game by yourself. We need you to make the right throws at the right time. We need you to manage the offense, Sam. And Kenneth Walker III is key to that. To take some of that pressure, some of that load off of Darnold's shoulders. And here's the thing. The way Seattle played in that fourth quarter and overtime in Week 16, they're capable of playing like that for a full game. Ask the Niners. Now, the Niners were extremely shorthanded. I had someone say to me last night, a good friend of mine texted me, he said, the Seahawks didn't bludgeon the Niners because they were that much better. They bludgeoned the Niners because the Niners didn't have any hands to get up in front of themselves to protect themselves from the punches. I think that's partially true. But have you seen the dominant fashion the way the Seahawks have played at times this year, especially on defense? All it's going to take is one key mistake, and they will scoop that thing up. They may score with it, as they've done multiple times this year, sometimes multiple times in the same game. And they will turn the momentum right back in their favor. So, again, it's not an insult. It's not a knock to a quarterback to ask them to manage the game. No one would call Matthew Stafford a game manager. But if the Rams can't run the ball at all, then they're cooked. Seattle will pin back their ears, and they'll beat up Stafford. So another game that I think, look, the number's a little bigger. It's 47.5. And there's still reason to believe that given the way these two teams played each other 5 weeks ago, that it could get into a back and forth affair late. So I would not play the total. And I probably would not play a side either. I'll be honest, I'd probably just look, once they get posted later in the week, at Kenneth Walker props. But as for the game itself, that dude is the storyline. If Kenneth Walker III has not a massive game, just a good game, and Sam Darnold doesn't have to throw the rock more than 26, 27 times, Seahawks are going to win. That defense is too damn good. That defense and Denver's defense in the Super Bowl, good Lord, have mercy. Once again, your drunk uncle gets proven right. Told you kids, defense wins championships. You're right, Uncle Billy. Here we go. Jared Stidham and Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl. That's my lean anyway. Stidham and Darnold. If you would have told somebody 4 years ago that the Super Bowl 60 quarterback matchup would be Stidham and Darnold, they'd have laughed you out of the room. But I think that's probably what we're headed for. If those two guys can come up for their teams, Stidham can make fewer mistakes than May in the early game, and Kenneth Walker III can have a good enough game that Darnold doesn't have to go out and win it again, as he did in Week 16, then I think we've got a Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl. What do you think? 310-840-4910 or jump in the YouTube chat as well. YouTube.com/@TheKostos as we're streaming live there. And of course, here on the Westwood One Sports Network and inside your Westwood One Sports app. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today on You Better You Bet, Sirius XM channel 375 as well. Coming up, we talked about it near the top of the show, but John Harbaugh got exactly what he wanted from the New York Giants. So what are the expectations now in the Big Apple, and how patient will Giants fans be with Harbaugh? We'll ask Pat Boyle in New York of BetMGM tonight. He joins us next here on You Better You Bet.
Indiana took care of business. Just an unbelievable storybook season for a team that entered the night only had, I think, like 5 all-time bowl game wins. They got another one, so they got 3 of those this year. That's how much of a perennial doormat Indiana had been year in and year out. Just a punchline. A lot of people saying, you go to a game in Bloomington, you're getting like 2 to 3 hours closer to the start of basketball season, but no longer a basketball school is IU. Very much a football school front and center, and one that really deserved to win the national title. I felt they were the best offense, felt they were the best defense, a most balanced team across the board, and all of college football pretty much all season long. I saw with my own eyes again in late September when they absolutely pummeled, embarrassed, depended by ILL. And I'm still shivering at what I had to witness, 63-10 mauling in Bloomington. I think that really put them on the map. And, of course, they just kept winning and winning and winning and defying a lot of the people, especially those south of the Mason-Dixon line, south of the Ohio River. Oh, golly, there's no way that Indiana can win a national title in football. This is Alabama country. This is Bulldog country. This is volunteer country. The SEC rules in football. Well, guess what? It happened, and the Big Ten has won now 3 straight consecutive national titles. Just unforeseen, unbelievable, and hopefully, Pat, Kurt Signetti belted up the bar, not had one, but drank at least, I don't know, a 6-pack of beers last night because he earned them.
It's a profound honor to be entrusted with the responsibility of coaching the New York Football Giants.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Really glad John Harbaugh cleared that up, that he'll be coaching the New York Football Giants. Appreciate that, John. We will talk about the expectations in New York with Harbaugh taking over with Pat Boyle of BetMGM tonight in just a moment here on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on You Better You Bet today. Don't forget, you can always take us with you wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, inside that Westwood One Sports app. Go download it. Also on Sirius XM channel 375 and streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/@thekostos. Appreciate everyone checking in the chat there as well. Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll get a view on things in Tennessee where Robert Saleh is now the head coach. That announced in the last 36 hours or so. Jared Stillman of Stillman and Company will join us to talk about that. Breaking news in college basketball. I just wanted to mention this briefly. A Tuscaloosa County judge today granted Charles Bediako a temporary restraining order against the NCAA, making him eligible to play immediately for Alabama. He's in the G League. He last played for Alabama in 2023. It's just getting weirder and weirder in college athletics. Hey, you can play. Anybody can play. You're welcome to play. Enroll in a couple classes, and we'll say, yeah, you're playing. But that is just another wild story of a guy going from the G League now back to college after having once been in the draft. Just nonsensical. But anything involving the NCAA usually tracks that way. Pretty nonsensical. So as the coaching carousel in the NFL continues to turn, we've had the big news over the weekend of John Harbaugh finally agreeing to terms with the New York Giants, getting just what he wanted from the New York, as he clarified, football Giants. And now the question is, what are the expectations and how much patience do Giants fans have for those expectations to be fulfilled? Who better to talk to if we're going to talk to somebody about the New York football Giants than my man from BetMGM tonight? He's there every night here on Westwood One Sports with Brad Evans. Pat Boyle joins us from the Big Apple. Morning, Pat. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Chris, that's a great intro, man. There's actually probably thousands of people that are better to talk to about the New York football Giants than me, but I appreciate you having me on, man. It's great to be on here on You Better You Bet, and hope you're having a great morning.
I am. Even better now that you're here. My Giants go-tos are you and Marash. So there you go. Those are my go-tos on the Giants. And
was
so
Marash
that's why
too busy making a trip to Krispy Kreme?
No comment. I can neither confirm nor deny. So I'm excited to have you here to talk about look, I'm sure everybody's excited. It's the day after the press conference. Harbaugh, for all intents and purposes, won the press conferences, people say. He was fired up. He was talking about Jackson Dart and what's possible with him. And so I just want to start here. What are the expectations in New York for Harbaugh? And I guess more importantly, how quickly are Giants fans going to expect him to fulfill those expectations?
Oh, right away. Right away, man. I mean, you know that the bar is always very high in New York, especially for a once great, once proud franchise that was the New York Football Giants. And I think that the expectation and the view of the New York Giants right now is that they will be back to being a proud franchise here. John Harbaugh is Super Bowl champion. John Harbaugh is one of the winningest head coaches in the NFL in the last 2 decades. Now, did it end well in Baltimore? No, but look at what the hell we just witnessed here. Tomlin done in Pittsburgh, McDermott done in Buffalo. And so, there was an expiration date in Baltimore. He's here now with the Giants. He's going to bring stability back to this team. He should be, and I understand that he's the owner of the most double-digit blown leads in the fourth quarter in the NFL in the last 5 years. I expect that to change. I expect the tackling of the Giants to change, which has been just an atrocity over the last couple of years, especially in the secondary. I expect the discipline to change. They have committed a lot of stupid penalties here over the last few years. And most importantly, John Harbaugh, special teams guy coming up with Philadelphia. I expect the special teams to change because they have also been a utter disaster. The expectation is Todd Monken is coming along with him here to be the OC. And so that offense really excites me. This is the guy that helped Lamar Jackson get to an MVP a couple of years ago. And the expectation is right away that the Giants are going to compete for a playoff spot. And I think that 8-9 wins is kind of the minimum, at least for me. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of Giants fans that have been beaten down, kicked into the mud, and had their faces rubbed into it. Maybe Marash will would say otherwise, that, just 6 or 7 wins is good for John Harbaugh. But no, I think for me, 9 wins, you got to finish above 500. especially since you saw the talent last year. You saw the promise, Jackson Dart, when he lit up the Philadelphia Eagles, when he lit up the Denver Broncos, and then the Giants defense couldn't hold a damn lead to save their life. You get Malik Neighbors coming back from the torn ACL. You get Cam Skadaboo coming back and hopefully looking as good as he did last year. The offensive line, I mean, fingers crossed. I don't know if it's possible, right? We might have to break the time continuum for the offensive line to stay healthy 2 years in a row. But they were healthy last year, and they were actually pretty damn good. So the defense is the most important thing, right? Because they were just an absolute meltdown waiting to happen year after year. And so, yeah, like deep down, are there concerns that John Harbaugh might, for whatever reason, have issues with holding leads in the fourth quarter, considering he wasn't the play caller on offense, wasn't the play caller on defense? He's got to get things straightened out, but the resume does speak for itself. And at least for me, expectation is that the Giants finish above 500 next year.
So I want to go into a lot of the specifics that you just laid out on both sides of the ball, but I want to start here. I went back and checked because I was just curious. I mean, the Giants, like you said, a once proud franchise. Of the 14 head coaches they've had during the Super Bowl era, Pat, the 3 that didn't at least get to a Super Bowl before the end of their 4th season didn't make it to a 5th season. Those 3 were Fossil, Parcells, and Coughlin in no particular order. Fossil not winning, obviously. Coughlin and Parcells did. So is 4 seasons too long of a leash for a Giants fan in this day and age? I know you mentioned playoffs this year is bare minimum expectation. 8-9 wins at the absolute bottom rung of expectations. But like you said, and I agree, a once proud franchise, a standard bearer in the NFL, if there is a Super Bowl dream or hope in the back of Giants fans' minds right now, how long do they give that rope?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a good one. That's a good question. There is obviously a lot of variables that could change that, but I don't know. I mean, Sean McDermott got 9 seasons. John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens got, 13 since his last Super Bowl? Mike Tomlin's gotten, 17 years since the Steelers won the Super Bowl off the top of my head? So some of these coaches, you get a long time. Now, granted, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin did already win one. And if they win one with the New York Giants, build a freaking statue outside of that dump called MetLife Stadium right now. But Sean McDermott had the quarterback that I think we all unanimously view as number 1 or number 2 in the NFL and didn't get to a Super Bowl for 9 seasons. But then again, you had the dynasty that was Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I'm not sure. Honestly, it's a cop-out answer. I don't know if I can give you a year. I mean, hell, if they don't get to a Super Bowl within 6-7 years, that probably warrants a change. But then again, if you're telling me they go to 3 NFC championship games, then right. I think that John Harbaugh is probably sticking around. So I think in the first, you said 4 years is the number you threw out. I think you have to have two playoff appearances in the next 4 years.
Part of the specifics that you outlined when you talked about the rebuilding of this team, especially on the defensive side, but obviously the growth necessary on the offensive side, it starts and ends with Jackson Dart. Do you think Harbaugh and Monken can do with Dart what they did with Lamar in Baltimore?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think the kid is a special freaking talent. And everybody is going to say, well, as long as he learns how to slide and as long as he learns how to stay out of the blue medical tent, yeah, like no bleep. Like that goes without saying. We all said that about Jaden Daniels. And then I don't think Jaden Daniels got hurt 3 or 4 times this year because of a refusal to slide. Like he got sacked one time and sprained his MCL. Another one was, yeah, he did try to make a run for it and then gets tossed down on his elbow and dislocates it, like some freak stuff. But hey, the warning signs were there. So the warning signs are there for Jackson Dart. He has to learn how to protect himself without a freaking shadow of a doubt. But I mean, dude, like you have all the intangibles that he brought to the table. That little flip touchdown pass, I know it was a meaningless game against the Cowboys in Week 18, and the Cowboys couldn't give a damn whether or not they won that game. But that little flip touchdown pass to Daniel Bellinger in Week 18 where he avoids a sack, I don't know how the hell he got out of it. It was those kinds of plays he made all season. He also, I thought, for a rookie, playing for an offense that, as the year went on, lost his head coach. The offense coordinator, Mike Kafka, in my opinion, was a complete and utter doofus. And I think the reads he was able to make, the ability to get rid of the ball quickly on a lot of occasions, and then, of course, what he can do as a runner. You don't need me to tell you. You watch 5 minutes of a Giants game and you see it. The power that he has, the speed, the finesse, the agility that he has running the football, that's paramount in today's game. So the arm is nuclear. You know, a couple of deep shots that he had this year to Wan'Dale Robinson, the ability to throw it to 3 levels. Like Jackson Dart, it would take somebody who's a total clown in order for him not to realize his potential. And, you know, again, Todd Monken, sure, got some criticism this year for that Ravens offense being inconsistent, but no one can ever take away from him. I was the OC for Lamar Jackson to get his MVP. So if he can bring Jackson Dart to even a shred of that, I think this Giants offense is going to be great. And again, injuries, we can speculate all we want. It's a tough part of football, of the NFL, but you got the other 2 best players on offense coming back from season-ending ones. What I saw from Malik Nabers and what I saw from Cam Scatterbo, those 3 guys, along with Theo Johnson, the tight end who's going into his 3rd year, that's a hell of an offense. That is a hell of an offense that each one of those guys can make incredible plays on their own. I'm not worried about the offense scoring points.
Pat Boyle is on BetMGM tonight, every night here on Westwood One Sports alongside Brad Evans. He's in New York, so we're talking Giants and the hiring of John Harbaugh and the expectations now in New York for them going forward. Do you think there's, I keep bringing up patience because I know it's hard. Look, you referenced the Steelers earlier and talking about Mike Tomlin, and I've been honest, I'm a Pittsburgher. I've grown up a Steelers fan. So like your patience wears thin with a team that tells you they expect to be a contender every year when everyone and their mother can see that they actually aren't acting like a contender. So I know how hard it's been for Giants fans in New York, which is why I come back to patience again. Is there a level of patience? You're jacked about the offense. It sounds, and I would be too with all those names that you outlined. Is there a level of patience in waiting to see how Dart and Malik Nabers slowly build that chemistry because they haven't had any time together yet?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, there will certainly be a pocket of fans that want this team to start 6-0 and score 30 points a game, and if they don't, they're going to be complaining about it. And you can already hear on on WFAN, one of our sister stations, are you kidding me with this guy, Todd Monken, bro? He stinks. This is this offense that was supposed to be great. So, like, again, he's coming off a torn ACL, Malik Nabers. Cam Scatterbo, his ankle was turned backwards. And Dart, like I said, had a couple of injuries last year, played banged up through some games. I think they're going to be great. It might take 2-3 games to get there. I think you have to have at least a little bit of if the Giants are 2-7 going into week 11 and the offense is bottom 5 in yards per game and points per game again, yeah, there might be that might be time to panic, right? That might be time to, send the panic alarm, at least on the offense. But I don't foresee that happening. I really don't. I think Todd Monken is a guy that has proven it. His time at Georgia at the college level how to run an offense, and his time at Baltimore how to run an offense. Many different other stops in the NFL. They want to run the football. It obviously helps when you have Derrick Henry as your running back the last couple of years, but it's not just Cam Scatterbo. They got Tyrone Tracy who's going into year 3 that the Giants can split those carries with. And so I expect this to be a run-first offense, but I also absolutely still think that they want to give Jackson Dart the keys and they want to develop him as a pure pocket passer. Because that was the knock on Lamar not too long ago. Oh, he can't throw. He's just a runner. And then the guy put up an MVP season, and he was like statistically one of the best pocket passers in terms of his rating and all the advanced metrics in like the last 10 years in the NFL. So they can definitely develop Jackson Dart into a guy that can hang in the pocket and make the big throws just as much as we know that he can get outside and do that. So, again, I'm really not worried about the offense. To me, it's that god-awful defense last year that better shape up.
Well, with that said, and we got about a minute and a half here, Pat, I'll just ask you, what do you want to see them do with the 5th overall pick? I've seen many a mock draft that has them going with another wide receiver as a compliment on the other side to Malik Nabers. But when it comes down to having a 5th overall pick and some talented defensive players out there, is it about the personnel? Is it about the coaching? What do you want to see them do ultimately with that 5th overall pick?
Defense. No, if they draft a receiver, then Joe Shane should be fired tomorrow. I mean, Joe Shane's like a cat with 10 lives, right? He died 9 times. He's like the corpse of a cat that was supposed to have 9. I don't know how he keeps coming back. The guy sounded like he was nervous as all hell for his job at the press conference yesterday because John Harbaugh is reporting directly to ownership, directly to Chris and John Mara. And so if things go wrong this year, Joe Shane's getting fired. And he's had some good drafts, right? I mean, he drafted Dart. They traded into the first round for him. They drafted Neighbors. He's also had a lot of whiffs. So they better draft a freaking defensive player, whether it's David Bailey, the outside linebacker from Texas Tech, who had like 18,000 sacks this year, or if it's Caleb Downs from Ohio State. I know he's not projected to go until like 10, 11, 12. I don't care. I think he is incredible. I think he could be the next Kyle Hamilton. That's who I want. David Bailey from Texas Tech or Caleb Downs. Fix that defense, please.
Pat Boyle from BetMGM tonight. He's on every night with Brad Evans here on Westwood One Sports. Love the insight on what's going on in New York and how Giants fans are feeling, Pat. Appreciate it a lot, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Mac Attack, appreciate you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. They're fired up in New York as well. They should be, right? Like it finally feels like you got somebody to guide this thing in the right direction. Again, regardless of what you may or may not think about Harbaugh's success, regular season success, and lack of postseason success over the last decade, to Pat's point, you saw what he and Todd Monken have done with Lamar Jackson. And you have the hope, if you're a Giants fan, they can do the same with Jackson Dart. They've got the weapons on offense. Go fill out the defensive side of the ball and maybe quickly pivot to becoming, at the very least, a playoff team in this season, 2026. Jared Stillman at the top of the hour going to join us from Nashville, from Stillman and Company, to give us their perspective on the hiring of Robert Saleh as the Titans' new head coach. But coming up, you can take these hot takes and you can shove them, or we can drop the confetti from the ceiling and celebrate them. We will play a rousing game of GTFO or Oh Yeah next here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. Make sure you take us with you inside that Westwood One Sports app. Download it and make sure you're with us constantly. All this week, all through the conference championship games, all the way up through Super Bowl 60 out in Santa Clara. The best place to be, Westwood One Sports. Again, Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today on You Better You Bet. Presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Also on SiriusXM, channel 375. Top of the hour. I don't want to say it's flown under the radar, but it was one of those jobs that wasn't quite as front and center as, say, the Giants job, or the Steelers job, or the Ravens job, or now the Bills job. The Titans job was out there, though. And Robert Saleh has landed it. He'll get another crack at head coaching in the NFL, but this is a defensive coach with a young quarterback that needs to be developed. How does the rest of the staff fill out? And what are the expectations down there in Nashville for Robert Saleh and the Titans? We'll talk to Jared Stillman at the top of the hour from Stillman and Company. Stupid game I like to play where we fire off hot takes at each other, and I tell you whether you can GTFO with it or, oh yeah, I totally agree with it. That's a basic explanation. But it's time for GTFO or, oh yeah.
It's now time for GTFO or, oh yeah.
I realized I just said the exact same thing the voice guy was going to say, so that was redundant. Nonetheless, here we are. And I'm going to ask everybody, we're going to go around the room. I'll ask for a hot take from everybody. They'll fire it off, and then I will agree or disagree with it to varying degrees. It could start with a simple, GTFO, come on, what are you talking about? All the way up to a very angry and impassioned, GTFO, what are we doing? The oh yeah side, conversely, the positive side would be, very mild. Oh yeah, okay, I agree with that. All the way up to the Kool-Aid man, oh yeah. And we reserve 110% exclusive agreement with a hot take for the Randy Macho Man Savage reaction of, oh yeah. So, again, there is your varying degrees of agreement or disagreement for GTFO or oh yeah. Bill, I'll let you lead us off. What do you got?
All right, Chris, I'm going to start with the Baseball Hall of Fame because I ripped off a take to the text chat last night that Andrew Jones is the worst Baseball Hall of Famer of all time. He has no business being in. However, I'll pull that back a little. Bill Mazeroski of the Pirates, that's the worst Hall of Famer of all time. He hit one legendary home run in 1960 in the World Series, beat the Yankees. Other than that, he did nothing.
Andrew Jones is in second place. This guy is Torrey Hunter with better PR. Hunter has more runs, hits, doubles, triples, hits for a higher average, higher on-base percentage, OPS plus, Jones 111, Hunter 110, 10 gold gloves for Jones, 9 for Hunter, identical fielding percentage. Hunter had more assists. Andrew Jones loafed in the outfield all the time. This guy loafs so much he makes DJ Moore look like Rudy Rudiger. Bobby Cox pulled him out of a game in the middle of an inning. He was loafing so much. This is a guy who has aged well because his batting average was in the toilet and nobody hits for batting average anymore. He was a very good player. He has no business being in the Hall of Fame. Andrew Jones is the second worst Hall of Famer in baseball history.
Wow. I am going to say, but it's a very mild because I agree with a lot of what you're saying about Andrew Jones. I'm going to say GTFO. I still think Harold Baines qualifies as possibly the worst Hall of Famer that I can lay claim to having seen actually play baseball. Like, I'm not going to go back to Tommy McCarthy or Lloyd Wainer or Freddie Lindstrom or these dudes that played with horsehair mitts and traveled by train. Like, I'm not, but of the Hall of Famers that I have witnessed with my own eyes, Bill, I will say GTFO. Andrew Jones is not the worst, or in your very specific delineation, second worst. The fact that you have taken Bill Mazeroski's name in vain is very painful to me. There is a small
I didn't even think
of
about
Forbes
that
Field behind me on the shelf. But I understand what you're saying. Maz is known for one big play. I mean, he was one of the best double play turners in baseball history at second base. But that aside, I understand where you're going.
His on-base percentage is below 300.
Quiet, Bill. Quiet. We don't talk about that. Okay,
we'll be nice.
We don't talk about that. So I look at Harold Baines as possibly the worst Hall of Famer all time, but I think Andrew Jones is close. They're both Hall of very good, right? Hall of longevity, I guess, is what this thing should be called at this point. All right, GTFO.
I'm a small room guy. Like that. I want less guys in. I want the all-time greats. You know, I want the Willie Mazes. Like you got to be a guy like everyone. He's stepping up to the plate. The other team's like, oh no, like that never happened with Andrew Jones.
No, and some great moments too, right? Like you think the World Baseball Classic, things like that, like those Braves teams, sure. But yeah, Hall of very good, and it's supposed to be the Hall of Fame. All right, Tyler, you're up next. Do you have anything for us? Would you like to fire off a hot take on today's round of GTFO or oh yeah? Assuming you're there.
Yeah.
Tyler.
So you actually,
I know you.
Yo, I'm here. You actually hit on this earlier with Charles Bediako coming back for Alabama. Alabama reinstated him, so he's going to play on Saturday for Alabama. He hasn't played since 2023 for the school. He last played with Brandon Miller 3 years ago for Alabama. So here's my hot take. If you have eligibility left in college and you don't get drafted, so you go undrafted, you should be allowed to come back to your respective school and play for that team again. And it'd be fun because I want more chaos in this sport. People don't want that. People want everything to be structured. I want more chaos. I want these fan bases to be sweating in the final round. Like, oh, can Carson Beck come back for another year? Let's hope he doesn't get drafted, because if he doesn't, he's allowed to play for Miami again. So, hot take: if you're undrafted, you should be allowed to come back to your school if you have eligibility.
You know what? I'm going to say, oh, yeah. And it's going to be a hearty Kool-Aid, man. Oh, yeah. Because I'm like you, Tyler. I want the chaos. If we truly are going to make this thing the Wild West, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Let's do it. Let's, oh, hey, yeah, you know what? You're not a pro. How many guys would choose to go back to college for another year over, like, I don't know, playing for $40,000 in the UFL or whatever it is? Go back to college. Go back to the glory days. Come on, let's go. Remember the movie Old School? I want Vince Vaughn driving the van around, dragging old men off the bus stop to initiate them into the fraternity. Let's go. I'm all for it. Oh, yeah. I like that one, Tyler, a lot. If we're going to get absolutely no rules, let's go absolutely no rules. All right, one more hot take for GTFO or oh, yeah. Kenny, do you have one?
Yes, I do. And not only will Jarrett Stidham and the Denver Broncos beat the New England Patriots, but because of that, he will earn a starting job next year and be one of the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL next year.
Oh, yeah. I think I agree with this one, too, because the quarterback class is such trash this year. When we're talking about either quarterbacks available in the draft, quarterbacks available in free agency, I think the head of the line is like Malik Willis. Yeesh. If we're talking about quarterbacks who may be available via trade, Tua or Kyler, yeah, if Jarrett Stidham wins the AFC Championship, goes on to the Super Bowl, and doesn't make a mess of himself, yeah, somebody, probably my Pittsburgh Steelers, will consider signing that dude up, giving him a deal, and making him a starting quarterback next year. That was a wildly successful round, I think, of GTFO or oh yeah. Coming up next, Big Bad Bob Saleh is the dude in Nashville now. The Tennessee Titans have hired Robert Saleh. We got to find out what are the expectations now there, short term and long term. Who better to talk to than Jared Stillman of Stillman & Company? He joins us next here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
This is You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM on Westwood One Sports.
The coaching carousel continues to turn in the NFL. A couple more hirings over the last few days, becoming more and more official. We'll talk about one of them. What are the expectations down in Tennessee for Robert Saleh taking over the Titans head coaching job? Jared Stillman going to join us in 1 second. You can join us as well, 310-840-4910, or jump in the chat on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/@thekostos, TheKostos. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. And, of course, on Westwood One Sports, inside your Westwood One Sports app. Make sure you got it downloaded and ready to go. And on SiriusXM channel 375. We talked Harbaugh earlier, taking over in New York with Pat Boyle. And this one, I don't want to say, again, flew under the radar. It's the job that's been open the longest since October, and maybe just wasn't as sexy in some head coaching candidates' opinions as the Giants or the Steelers or the Ravens or now the Bills even. But nonetheless, the Titans landed on a guy who has head coaching experience and who has done, I think, despite the slew of injuries he had to deal with, a great job with the defense he had in front of him this year. Robert Saleh, big bad Bob Saleh rolling into town. Jared Stillman of Stillman & Company. Mondays through Fridays, 2 p.m. Central on YouTube joins us now. Jared, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it, man. And what's the initial reaction down there in Music City to Robert Saleh taking over?
Well, I'm going to ask you this question, Mac. Is your question, what is the initial reaction from me, or what is the initial reaction from the fans? Because that may be two totally different things. So clarify when you say immediate reaction. Give me what are you asking here?
What do the fans think? Because I feel like they've been beaten into the ground over the last few years in Nashville, and they're probably somewhat numb at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a hope with Robert Saleh that Robert Saleh can come in and bring in an offensive coordinator who will take care of that side of the ball and Cam Ward. There was a lot of talk about Mike McDaniel because he and Saleh were very close from their time together in San Francisco. There's been some talk about Bobby Slowick, somebody with the last name Kubiak. Maybe there's another Kubiak or maybe 3 Kubiaks out there. Who knows, that could come in and run the offensive side of the ball. But then there was the report from Diana Rossini earlier today that Brian Daboll is holding out for the Buffalo Bills head coaching job. And if he doesn't get that, then it seems, according to Diana, likely that Brian Daboll would be the offensive coordinator for Cam Ward in Tennessee. So I think there's some optimism there. And I think there is a feeling, and again, this is amongst the fans, this is not me, but I think there's a feeling that Robert Saleh can be the leader type of coach that the Titans had with Mike Vrabel that they absolutely did not have with Brian Callahan, who was a great guy. He just wasn't a very good coach, and he wasn't a very good leader. And I think that's the hope, is that Robert Saleh can bring the defenses that he had in New York, where I think they were number 4 in 2022 and they were number 3 in 2023, and he can lead the organization while they bring in an offensive coordinator, a Kubiak, a Slowick, or what seems more likely, a Brian Daboll, who can develop Cam Ward.
All right. How does Jared Stillman feel about the move?
Jared Stillman's nervous. So Jared Stillman's a big Titans fan. And I tell people, because I am very hard on the Titans. I am very cynical. I am very pessimistic. I'm a season ticket holder. I was 10 years old. My dad won the lottery that they had for fans to go to the Super Bowl when they lost by a yard to the Rams, and I cried in the Georgia Dome when that happened. So I love the Titans. It feels like, for me, the Titans are making a mistake with Robert Saleh simply because they don't know him. And so when you hire a guy that you don't know, when you say, we think he can be a leader, do you know that? And so the general managers never worked with Robert Saleh before. The assistant general managers and kind of this consortium of decision makers they have there, they've never worked with Robert Saleh. It feels like the owner saw something on TV she liked and directed them to wanting to hire Robert Saleh. I had somebody on my show yesterday, Jake Asman, who covers the Jets in New York, and Jake basically said, hey, Robert Saleh was doomed in large part because Zach Wilson wasn't very good and Woody Johnson is a terrible owner, which I think a lot of people would agree with, but he's not blameless either. and that these solid Jets got consistently outcoached in big games, that anytime there was some mental toughness that was required, they folded. Penalties were a problem. Game planning was a problem. They were bad coming off of buys under Robert Saleh. The offensive coaching staff under Robert Saleh was a problem. I mean, that concerns me. And so I'm not one to sit here and tell people when it comes to coaches, oh my God, this guy is going to be a great coach. Like Billy Z, that's how he is. Because when Ben Johnson was out there last year for the Bears search, it was like, oh, this guy's a great coach and that guy's a great coach. And I'm like, we don't know those things. I'm not saying they're not, but we don't know. And I don't know Robert Saleh. And so when it comes to Robert Saleh, his resume was very unimpressive. The Jets are a clown show, but that doesn't mean that Saleh is blameless either, and that makes me very nervous.
All right, let me pivot back to the offensive coordinator position, which you make a great point, is going to be massive, as important as the head coach because of your young quarterback. Is there a feeling that all it takes to unlock some of the doors for Cam Ward is, like you said, one of the 17 Kubiaks or a Dayball? Is that enough? Or did fans get what they thought they needed out of Cam Ward in his first season, despite the poor results record-wise? Did they see growth in him and go, well, hey, if we could just get this guy a quarterback whispering coordinator, he could take a massive leap?
So, again, I think this is another one where there's a difference between how the fans feel and how I feel when it comes to Cam. But the fans, when it comes to Cam, I think they felt like they saw enough this year to believe that Cam is the guy. I think they feel like they saw enough out of Cam this year to believe that he's the guy because they wanted to see enough to be able to say that he's the guy. Cam was dead last in the NFL in QBR. And I understand that QBR is not the end-all, be-all stat, but when you're dead last, that is kind of telling. And Cam Ward, I believe, was overdrafted. In the 2025 draft, it was a weak quarterback class. Cam's 6'2", that's shorter than your typical quarterback that goes number one. Your Elways, your Joe Burrows, those guys are usually in the 6'4", 6'5" range. Cam has very poor mechanics with his footwork and his arm angles, which constantly are changing. That makes accuracy on a consistent basis very hard to find. Now, again, Brian Daboll is the one guy who was the offensive coordinator when Josh Allen took that step from inaccurate, inconsistent quarterback to MVP level passer. So maybe that's what they need. I am skeptical about Cam Ward's ability to become a franchise quarterback. I think the Titans in the first year of the Cam Ward era did absolutely everything in their power to ruin him as a young quarterback. He's already injured in the last game of the season, so he's going to be spending the offseason recovering with a shoulder injury. And for quarterbacks and pitchers, shoulder injuries can be very scary. So I'm very, very skeptical that a Brian Daboll will come in here and save Cam Ward, or a Kubiak, or a Slowick, or a Shanahan disciple, or a McVay disciple will come in here and will save Cam Ward. But the fans feel like Cam Ward is on his path to be next year's Drake May or Caleb Williams. I don't see that, but that's how they feel.
Jared Stillman, the host of Stillman & Company, every afternoon on YouTube. Check it out. Get started at 2 Central every Monday through Friday. Joining us here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today here on Westwood One Sports. So let's play out the line of thinking, though, Jared, because I tend to side with you. I don't think Cam Ward is that guy, and I think he's going to need a whole lot more than just a quarterback whispering OC. I think they've got to put some talent around the guy. What is your level? I'm not even asking about the fans at this point, because like I said, I think Titans fans have been beaten down into numbness over the last few years. What is your level of belief in Mike Borgonzi to be the guy to put that level of talent around Cam Ward that they need to put around him to be successful?
My level of belief is very low. And I like Mike Borgonzi. The previous general manager that the Titans had, Ran Carthon, was incompetent. And so Mike Borgonzi is a massive step up because at least when he holds a press conference, he makes sense, which is somewhat of a step in the right direction. But Mike Borgonzi's been the general manager now for a year. And through an entire draft where they had the number one pick and they had high picks in almost every round, and they had an entire free agency period, the Tennessee Titans improved from 2024 to 2025 by exactly 0 games. And that is concerning. And so a lot of people want to believe that their general manager is a great general manager until there's too many gaffes and it turns into Joe Shane with the Giants. I believe that a general manager has to prove to me that he knows what he's doing. Mike Borgonzi's resume, assistant general manager for the Chiefs, was a resume that gets you a general manager job in today's NFL. And it's a lot like a coach who's a coordinator on a good team. He's going to get an offer somewhere to be a head coach unless he's 98 years old like Vic Fangio and has already been a head coach, or is Josh McDaniels and has failed miserably twice. So in the case of Mike Borgonzi, he did deserve an opportunity somewhere to be a general manager based on his resume. But the first year I found to be very concerning. And it's actually funny, Mac, because last year I was banging the table for the Titans to sign Sam Darnold. I am a big Sam Darnold believer. I mean, this doesn't even go back to Minnesota. This is before that. This is the 4-2 when Carolina in 2022 got back into the playoff race at the end of the year with Sam Darnold at quarterback, with Steve Wilks as their interim coach. I watched those games and I said, Sam Darnold looks like a pretty good quarterback. And so I'm a big bang the table for Sam Darnold guy. I could not believe Minnesota after winning 14 games would let him walk. And I looked at him and I said, that needs to be your quarterback. And when Mike Borgonzi took the job, he came from Kansas City. He talked about Alex Smith and how important Alex Smith was in the Kansas City Chiefs process to be what they've become. Because without Alex Smith, there isn't the winning that allows them to be able to draft Mahomes and sit Mahomes on the bench and develop Mahomes and really have a plan for a guy that they love. They weren't desperate for a quarterback. They found a quarterback prospect that they were in love with, that they felt like, we can mold this clay. And that's what happened with Mahomes. I felt like, bring in Sam Darnold, use the picks, trade out with the Giants who are desperate for a young quarterback, use the picks to build up your roster so that when you do find a quarterback that you love, that you think can be the next Mahomes, then go strike with a 31-year-old Sam Darnold. They decided to skip that step. And they decided, you know what? We're just going to draft this guy and he's going to be Mahomes. Now, we're not going to do anything that Kansas City did for Mahomes, but we are going to just draft him and say, okay, you're going to be Mahomes. And I'm not sure it necessarily works like that. Ben Roethlisberger said recently, he goes, his philosophy to building a team would be to build the team and then get the quarterback, not draft the quarterback and then build the team. And think about this. I think the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL, and again, not this season, but overall, I think we would all agree are probably Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow in some order. Now, Drake may be in that mix. Matthew Stafford may be in that mix, but those are the top 4 guys. Kansas City made the playoffs the year before they drafted Mahomes, and they traded up. Buffalo made the playoffs the year before they drafted Josh Allen, and they traded up. Baltimore had a winning record the year that they drafted Lamar Jackson 32nd. So only Cincinnati was the team that was absolutely terrible and got lucky enough to draft Joe Burrow. Well, that kind of quarterback doesn't come along all the time. And so that's what I tell people when it comes to what Ben's saying about building the team. I say build your team around a veteran quarterback so that you have a defense, you have an offensive line, you have a running game, and then bring in the young quarterback where there's less pressure and there's more people tugging the rope for him. And the Titans did the exact opposite of that. So when you say, how much do I trust Mike Borgonzi? I don't really trust him because I don't believe with the philosophy that he's already set in motion for how they were supposed to develop Cam Ward.
Before I let you run, Jared, I have to ask, and again, a full disclosure moment for me, despite being a Yinzer and bleeding black and gold and being a Steelers fan all my life, my dad was a Love Ya Blue Oilers fan and probably had a cold, dead black part of his heart until the very bitter end held out for the Adams family for moving the Oilers to Nashville. And especially if he could have seen the old Love Ya Blue Oilers unis being worn at home in Nashville, he's undoubtedly spinning in the ground right now. So I say all that to say this. I've never been impressed with Amy Adams Strunk. Is the ownership in Tennessee part of what's getting in the way, or is it not doing enough? I mean, there's multiple levels, it sounds like, of I don't know about this person, I don't know about that person. Is Amy Adams Strunk on that list? I put her up there with like Jimmy Haslam in Cleveland as one of the least inspiring owners, in my opinion, around the NFL.
Well, I would ask it to you like this. How does it look when you fired Mike Vrabel? And in 2 years since you fired Mike Vrabel, you've won 6 games. And meanwhile, Mike Vrabel is in the AFC Championship game. You know, if the Patriots beat Jarrett Stidham this weekend, then Mike Vrabel will have won as many playoff games this year as the Titans won games, period. And I thought it was time for Vrabel to go when Vrabel got fired, but I was adamant that the Titans needed to clean house and go get an experienced general manager, a guy like Thomas Dimitroff, who's now with the Saints, the old Falcons general manager, a guy like Rick Spielman, the old Vikings general manager, somebody who had demonstrated success running a football team, and they needed to put that guy in charge. Unfortunately, the NFL gets so carried away with the unknown. It's why we love first-time head coaches. It's why we love rookie quarterbacks. It's why we love general managers, that instead of looking at a general manager with a solid resume, but with some flaws and some blemishes, and saying, you know what? John Robinson, the old general manager that Amy Adams Strunk hauled off and fired, won 61% of his games when he ran the team. That's the same as Bill Walsh in San Francisco. That's pretty good. They say, let's go get the young guy that nobody's ever heard of, that has never been a general manager before, because maybe that guy can be the next Bill Polian. I don't understand that. I don't understand that philosophy within the league. To your point about the owner, she absolutely is a problem. And it's weird because you asked, is she too involved or is she not involved enough? It's a little bit of both. So I have a lot of respect for her for the way that she treats people, because I do believe Amy Adams Strunk in her heart is a good person. But being a good person doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be a good football owner. Amy Adams Strunk lives in Texas. And so she flies in for the games and she's around occasionally. But I've had people inside the building saying, I wish she was around more often. What that means is she charges her lieutenants with reporting to her about what's going on a day-to-day basis, and a lot can get lost in translation when that happens. On her front, she stays out of it, and she says that she wants to empower her football people. But then, when she gets angry, she acts. Again, I brought up John Robinson. The Titans had won 2 division titles, and they were in first place at 7-5. They had been to the playoffs 3 years in a row, 4 out of the last 5. And A.J. Brown torched them and spanked the goalpost with a towel, and the next day she fired the general manager, who, again, won 61% of his games. She then put in a shotgun marriage between Mike Vrabel and a guy that Mike Vrabel didn't want to be the general manager, who was truly incompetent. And that became an issue. She fired Mike Vrabel. She promoted the guy who was truly incompetent. If she was in the building every day, I think she would have seen that Rand Carthon was truly incompetent. If she was in the building every day, I think she would have been able to manage Mike Vrabel's ego, which became a huge problem here in Tennessee at the end. And it wouldn't surprise me if in a couple of years it becomes a problem in New England. But when you're not in the building, you can't manage those things. So she's not involved enough. And then she just decides to take over whenever she feels like. Her football people did not want to fire Brian Callahan during the season this year. She got embarrassed when they went out to Vegas, and she brought a bunch of family out to the game, and they got beat by the Raiders. And she basically called her football people and said, fire him. And so that type of ownership is really detrimental to the process. You hire guys and say, hey, we're going to give you 5-year contracts and everybody will take a job because it's one of 32. But you notice John Harbaugh didn't even want to meet with them. He used them as leverage for the Giants job. Kevin Stefanski used them as leverage for the Falcons job. People don't want to work there because they can't trust the owner. So to answer your question, she's not involved enough. She's too involved. And she is a really, really big problem.
Well, Godspeed to the Titans and their fans and big bad Bob Saleh, and most of all to you, Jared. I feel like that was cathartic for you, though.
I think that what happens is You know how this is with optimism, and the Titans will do something. I see the cracks in the foundation of the decision making. I'll point those out. That people will call me a hater, and they'll say I'm not a real fan, and then all of a sudden they win 3 games, and nobody says you were right. They just get mad, and then the next thing they get mad at, and so it is what it is. Mac, thank you.
Thank you, Jared Stillman. Check out Stillman & Company on YouTube every Monday through Friday starting at 2 p.m. Central. He's locked into everything going on in Nashville, especially, as you could hear, everything involving the Tennessee Titans, who just named Robert Saleh their new head coach. Glad I got some confirmation on my bias against Amy Adams-Strunk, and I feel a little bit better now about hating the fact it's absolute football blaspheme that they wear the old Oilers uniforms in Nashville. Sorry, had to get that off my chest. Coming up next, how bad does Sean McDermott want to coach this year? And the key word there is bad. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM right here on Westwood One Sports.
It's extremely difficult. I feel like I let my teammates down tonight. I hate how it ended, and it's going to stick with me for a long time.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
That's because you did let your teammates down, Josh. You played like crap on Saturday. You should cry. Cry, baby. You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos today. I mean, the deification of Josh Allen. Here's the problem. Here's the problem for me. I think Josh Allen may deep down inside be a pretty cold dude. A dude you'd hang out with. Go find his clips on the internet from Pardon My Take and McAfee and all that. Like, he seems like he's a good dude. But that doesn't mean he gets completely absolved for completely fumbling away his best chance to get to a Super Bowl in his 8-year career. Doesn't mean he gets off scot-free for getting his head coach fired. We'll get into that head coach, former head coach, Sean McDermott, in just a second. And certainly it doesn't afford him any special treatment as compared to other quarterbacks. And I think just about any other quarterback in the league who went to the podium and sniffled his way out the door after 4 turnovers in a divisional round game would get absolutely crushed by the media. And maybe deservedly so. But not St. Josh. No, not St. Josh. We feel bad for him because he's screwed up. And it's not his fault. Sean McDermott sucks and he doesn't have any wide receivers. I think it's a bunch of crap. Anyway, Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos, as I mentioned on You Better You Bet here on Westwood One Sports. Always inside your Westwood One Sports app as well and on SiriusXM channel 375. Be sure to check it out on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/@TheKostos, where you can jump into the chat there as well. How bad does Sean McDermott want to coach this year? There were some reports yesterday that he really wants to coach again in 2026. But you look around and how great are the spots that are left that may entertain hiring McDermott? Pittsburgh Steelers certainly aren't going to hire McDermott because, well, they may as well just ask Mike Tomlin to come back then. Same thing. Years of coming up short in the playoffs. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are looking for that either after firing John Harbaugh for the very same reason, coming up short in the playoffs or short of the playoffs. So those two places, probably not. It leaves the trio of less than appetizing options of Cleveland, Arizona, and Vegas, baby. Now, maybe we can debate just a bit the idea of whether there's some level of attractiveness in the Vegas position. We'll get to that in a second. Who is lining up to go to Cleveland or Arizona? Unless you are a guy who feels like you are desperate for your first head coaching job and you want to get out of the cycle of being a coordinator. You know, one of the Kubiaks, maybe Chris Shula, maybe the other LaFleur, maybe this Nate Scheelhaus guy from the Rams staff, the pass game coordinator who's like 34, 35 years old. If you're one of those guys, maybe I could see you taking the Arizona job. Maybe. But you're not working with a lot there. So it's not the best ownership group. I mean, sure, you live in Arizona. It's beautiful there, except for the 4 months a year when you step outside and your skin boils. But other than that, it's great. Expectations are low because, well, they're the Cardinals. So maybe a really good job for a first-time head coach, or just an okay job for a first-time head coach. So if you're Sean McDermott, you're not. No thanks. I'm good. I'm not interested in Arizona. Cleveland, you don't even let the phone. You don't even answer the phone. You don't. I'll be honest. Totally honest. You even see the 216 area code pop up on your phone and it says unknown caller, Cleveland, Ohio. If you're Sean McDermott, you don't even ignore the call. You take the phone and you chuck it into Lake Erie, for God's sake. No thanks. Out the window. No Arizona, no Cleveland. Vegas? Maybe. Because look, Tom Brady's calling a lot of the shots now. Maybe you don't have to deal with bowl cut Davis as much. You can count on Tom to help develop Fernando Mendoza, you presume. So you'll have a young quarterback. That'll buy you a few years. You'll have Brady's expertise around more often, you would think, helping develop that young quarterback. Maybe that's somewhat attractive, but it's also still wildly unstable in Vegas. Again, as soon as he gets his latest bowl cut done, he may look up like a cat catching a glimpse of a shiny object and go, I'm not happy with us, and fire you anyway, Mark Davis. So there's always that chance that you may be handling things pretty well and you'll still get booted to the curb. So I could maybe see Vegas. But other than that, if you're McDermott, where are you going to go? If I'm Sean McDermott, I take a step back for a year. I go sip Mai Tais on a beach somewhere with my buddy Mike Tomlin, my old college teammate at William and Mary. And he tells me about all the dirt he's getting from his buddy Jay Glazer on what openings may be coming up soon. And I stay locked into that cycle, the rumor mill about who's going to get fired and where I may be able to swoop in and take a job. That's what I do if I'm Sean McDermott. I sure as hell don't jump headlong into Cleveland or Arizona or probably not even Vegas. That might be the one place that makes a little bit of sense. 310-840-4910 is the number if you want to get in on the conversation here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos. But just back to the Josh Allen thing one more time. He cost them not just the game, their best chance at a Super Bowl appearance in decades, his personal best chance at a Super Bowl appearance since he's come into the league because he's had to battle Mahomes and Burrow and Lamar on the AFC side of things since coming in. But he also cost McDermott his job. Again, I'm not going to sit here and whistle past the graveyard and pretend like there weren't any faults in McDermott's coaching style. Not going to do that. But it's ridiculous that Brandon Beane gets promoted and Sean McDermott gets fired. When you see especially the wide receiving core that they had put together for Josh Allen this year. I mean, he was throwing it to traffic cones in some cases. Credit to Brandon Cooks for coming in late in the year and having a little bit of an impact. But it's hilarious to me that you have Terry Pagula in the last couple of days saying Buffalo's coaching staff pushed to draft Keon Coleman and Brandon Beane merely supported it. And it's not fair for that draft choice to be pinned on Brandon Beane. But we also have audio of Brandon Beane basically falling in love with his selection of Keon Coleman during the draft.
I'm glad he ran that. Help you get him.
He loved Keon Coleman during the draft. What do you say, popped a good one? Does he talk about Keon Coleman's 40 time, I guess? Look, at the time, Keon Coleman made sense, sure. But that hasn't panned out, and that's on Brandon Beane. If I were a GM and I had selected Keon Coleman and watched the way it's played out, I'd have to wear that. But Brandon Beane doesn't. He gets a promotion. And Sean McDermott gets fired. Bills fans are going to find out the hard way over the next couple of years whether Josh Allen is capable of bouncing back from this and no longer playing dumb football in the most consequential moments, or whether that's just in his football, his quarterbacking DNA. You're going to find out the hard way. Look, I hope, because again, I think when Josh Allen is good, it's good for the game, man. Give me that Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks on the AFC side, all battling for a Super Bowl berth every year. I think that's good for the game. And I think Josh Allen is going to get there someday if he learns from Saturday night. If he doesn't, and everybody continues to make excuses for him, and he goes back to the podium next year and he cries a little bit more, that's not going to help the Bills or Josh Allen get any closer to a Super Bowl berth. Excuse me. It's got me choked up. Coming up, we laughed, we cried, we learned some things, especially about Board Op Kenny, the 3 stars of the day, next here on Westwood One Sports.
The defense has been grossly underrated and overlooked consistently throughout the year. They were really an elite unit. Were they as elite as Houston Texans statistically? No. Were they as elite as the Seattle Seahawks statistically? No. But they were not that far off in the grand scheme of things as a team that really just brought it, man. I know the conditions played a factor there. You had a wet snow, a starter's rain turned to a heavy wet snow late in the game, some light accumulations, and guys, as a result, the ball was very sloppy. Guys are dropping passes all over the place. C.J. Stroud was just abysmal, though. Decision-making was bad. He was under constant arrest. The offensive line was bad. The blitz packages were exotic. They were well-schemed, well-disguised, and it kept Houston out of sorts and out of sync as a result. Stroud with those 4 INTs, I thought he was going to get yanked for the giraffe neck and Bills at one point in the game, who looked pretty good and, a few starts earlier this season. But D'Amico Ryan stuck with C.J. Stroud. But kudos to New England Patriots on the defensive end. Drake May made some mistakes, again, with his ball protection. I felt that was going to be an issue, and it was at times. And Ramondre Stevenson was awesome between the tackles. Got to give him credit where credit is due, but the defense is what really won the game for New England. It is an area they're just not getting enough love in. A team that's saying, hey, look at us. Our unit is just as elite as some of the others in the NFL.
Welcome back to You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.
Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on You Better You Bet today here on Westwood One Sports. And we will wrap up the show in just a moment with our 3 stars of the day because we learned things today. In some cases, we learned about the reaction to head coaching hires around the NFL. In some cases, we just learned a whole lot about the genetics of our coworkers. We'll explain in just a moment here on You Better You Bet, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. And if you're staying up late to watch Australian Open tennis or getting up early as it may be to watch Australian Open tennis, make sure when you log into the BetMGM app, you're using that Aussie Open odds boost token. Add it to your bet slip and activate it. If you win your wager that was made with the token, you're going to receive extra winnings in unrestricted bonus dollars. Download the BetMGM app today and use it to bet on the Australian Open with that odds boost token and score a bigger payout inside the BetMGM app. So thanks to each and every one of you, again, who tolerated me filling in for Nick Kostos today. I appreciate that, especially those of you in the YouTube chat. Like my good friend, I want to make sure I have the screen name right, Andy B2961, who had a very simple question, a very pointed and direct question for me. And it was, why is this dude such a Josh Allen hater? Andy, I'm actually quite the opposite of a Josh Allen hater. I think Josh Allen's damn good, if not the best quarterback in football, as he was last year, most of this year. Problem is, Josh Allen still has that stupidity running through him every once in a while. Hey, quarterbacks got to have a certain level of IDGAF at times, right? Problem is, when you don't G and F at the right time, you end up dropping the football. And my problem isn't so much with Josh Allen even. It's that people are talking about Josh Allen in the wake of the Broncos game. Like, oh, poor Josh. You can't really blame that on him. Oh, sure. We sure as hell can blame that on him. Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over 4 times. The Bills win that game. And they're playing the Patriots again, a team I think they could beat for a shot to go to their first Super Bowl in 3 decades. 8 years together, Josh Allen and Sean McDermott went to just 2 AFC championship games. A lot of that's on Sean McDermott. So I get why eventually it had to end for him in Buffalo. But I think it's putting two together and getting 4 to say Josh Allen caused the straw to break the camel's back. Plainly obvious. Josh Allen and the Bills win Saturday in Denver. Sean McDermott's still got a job. Things are very different because they're in their 3rd AFC championship game in 8 years together. And that is much, much different from what we have seen. All right, we laughed, we cried, we learned things. It's time for your 3 stars of the day here on You Better You Bet.
3.
The famous Willie Mays basket catch back to the plate, running towards the warning track at the Polo Ground. Why are we playing that for you? Well, because we were talking about the Hall of Fame earlier. Enshrinement announcements came yesterday. Jones and Carlos Beltran. Oh, Hall of very good, but not Hall of Famers. And I talked about Willie's godson, Barry Lamar Bonds, who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. And somehow we went down a rabbit hole where we found out that our very own Kenny Henderson, our port op here on You Better You Bet, not only had one grandfather that played with Willie Mays, but both of your grandfathers, Kenny, played with Willie Mays? What?
That is correct, yes.
How? And one of them your namesake, Ken Henderson, played in the bigs for a decade and a half with the Giants and the White Sox, wrapped his career up with the Cubs. The man got MVP votes one year. And Kenny just jumps in the chat this morning like, yeah, my grandpa played a little baseball. How did both of your grandparents end up being professional ball players? How does that happen?
I don't know how it happens, but it happened, and it's something that's very unique to me, and I appreciate you guys giving them the shout out on the show.
It's amazing. The genetics you have at your disposal, Kenneth, are ridiculous.
Yeah, Nick's always telling me that I've got this nice jawline, and the guys are giving me a hard time for being 6'4" and doing nothing about it, so I have to hear about it.
Well, what are we talking about? You're living your dream every day sitting here with us. Doing nothing about it.
Wouldn't want it any other way.
Give me the number 2 star of the day, Kenny.
2.
The expectation is right away that the Giants are going to compete for a playoff spot. And I think that 8-9 wins is kind of the minimum, at least for me. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of Giants fans that have been beaten down, kicked into the mud, and had their faces rubbed into it.
That's Pat Boyle of our very own BetMGM Tonight here on Westwood One Sports. You can hear him every weeknight alongside Brad Evans on BetMGM Tonight, talking about the expectations for John Harbaugh in New York. If he does not at least win 9 games this first year, I think it's going to get really loud really quick. I don't know if that's totally fair either. I think the bar should be set higher, but over a longer period of time. I mentioned it earlier. In the Super Bowl era, Giants head coaches, of the 14 I think that they've had, if you didn't at least get to a Super Bowl by the end of your 4th season, you didn't see a 5th season. Parcells, Fossil, Coughlin all went to the Super Bowl in their 4th year or sooner in the job. That, I think, should be the bar for John Harbaugh with the Giants. And our number 1 star of the day.
1.
It feels like, for me, the Titans are making a mistake with Robert Saleh simply because they don't know him. And so when you hire a guy that you don't know, when you say, we think he can be a leader, do you know that?
And do they know that Saleh's that guy? Can he manage poor ownership in Nashville any better than he had to deal with poor ownership in Florham Park? I think that's a giant question mark. I mean, he's got to find the right offensive coordinator. That's step 1 to bring along Cam Ward. You've also got to make sure you trust your GM to go out and get the talent to surround Cam Ward. And oh, by the way, you're in charge of the defense too. Don't screw that up, because there's not a ton of talent on that side of the ball. That is a steep hill to climb with the Tennessee Titans for big bad Bob Saleh. And I don't envy him. And great stuff from Jared Stillman earlier, Stillman and Company on YouTube every day starting at 2 p.m. Central. He doesn't sound overly confident about where the Titans are headed. And I can't say I blame him. Seems like slightly schizophrenic ownership, a GM who's still trying to figure things out, and now a brand new head coach who doesn't have a great track record as a head coach. Yeah, you can blame it all on the fact that it was with the Jets, but it sounds like, at least according to some sources in New York, Robert Saleh wasn't exactly always nailing it either there. Just didn't help that he had terrible ownership in place above him. So great stuff from Jared Stillman today on the Titans. Great stuff from Pat Boyle on the Giants. I told you each of the players that I think are crucial to the AFC and NFC championship games. Told you how the Steelers could end up being giant cowards if they go one direction over another with their head coaching job. I told you, I think Mike McDaniel's making the right choice going to LA to become the Chargers offensive coordinator. I think if he sits down and really does as good a job as I expect he will with Harbaugh and Herbert and those running backs, Mike McDaniel might look up at the end of the year and go, you know what? Maybe I don't need to be a head coach to be happy. Maybe I can just be a really damned good offensive coordinator, and that's my lane. That's my niche. I think it could work for him. I mean, the head coaching thing, I don't know if it's going to work again for McDaniel. Coordinating an offense, that I think we know that guy can most certainly do. So thanks again to every single one of you for joining the show today. Chris Mack in for Nick Kostos on You Better You Bet. Nick will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern here on Westwood One Sports, inside the Westwood One Sports app, and of course on the YouTube stream as well. YouTube.com/@TheKostos. Always Westwood One Sports on Sirius XM channel 375. Your home for the AFC and NFC championship games this Sunday as well. For the entire crew, for Bill, for Tyler, for Kenny, for Mike, for all of you for joining the chat, jumping into the conversation, a large and very hearty and gracious thank you again. Black and Abdallah up next right here on Westwood One Sports.
The defense has been grossly underrated and overlooked consistently throughout the year. They were really an elite unit. Were they as elite as Houston Texans statistically? No. Were they as elite as the Seattle Seahawks statistically? No. But they were not that far off in the grand scheme of things as a team that really just brought it, man. I know the conditions played a factor there. You had a wet snow, a starter's rain turned to a heavy wet snow late in the game, some light accumulations, and guys, as a result, the ball was very sloppy. Guys are dropping passes all over the place. C.J. Stroud was just abysmal, though. Decision-making was bad. He was under constant duress. The offensive line was bad. The blitz packages were exotic. They were well-schemed, well-disguised, and it kept Houston out of sorts and out of sync as a result. Stroud with those 4 INTs, I thought he was going to get yanked for the giraffe neck and Bills at one point in the game, who looked pretty good and, a few starts earlier this season. But D'Amico Ryan stuck with C.J. Stroud. But kudos to New England Patriots on the defensive end. Drake May made some mistakes, again, with his ball protection. I felt that was going to be an issue, and it was at times. And Ramondre Stevenson was awesome between the tackles. Got to give him credit where credit is due, but the defense is what really won the game for New England. It is an area they're just not getting enough love in. A team that's saying, hey, look at us. Our unit is just as elite as some of the others in the NFL.